In this video, I want to speak about the beauty of Lightwork systems. And Lightwork systems, all that means is when we go through our shadow work, right? We can call that shadow to spirit work. And the spirit of a light that emerges from that. Well, we don't have to just nurture that and go into a new shadow, right? Fixing another shadow again and again and again, going down that treadmill. Instead, what we can do is we can allow that light to grow, and then we can allow other lights that may have emerged from different shadow patterns to connect together. And we create a lightwork system where multiple lights come together. And what happens is they start generating their own organic system, which then often generates more positive qualities and allows each light to grow much larger than they could have on their own, and to develop much more complexity, right? To deal with much more challenging situations instead of being one-dimensional. And so that's what I want to explore in today's video, but just a quick note on who I am. My name's Cameron Borthwick. I lost a business at 19 years old due to self-sabotage. And then after that, it pulled me to go and live with a Buddhist nun, as well as a professional hypnotherapist. And so I lived with these two amazing mentors who taught me about meditation, shadow work, developmental psychology, and hypnotherapy, to the point where I left, started my own business to help other entrepreneurs who are already thriving externally, but thrive internally too. And so that's the purpose of this. And so if we get into this Lightwork systems chat, the key thing that I think is to notice is systems are emerging organically, right? When we have shadow, and just quick reference to people who might not know what I mean by shadow. Shadow is simply patterns internally that are creating harm or pain externally, right? You can think of, if I'm holding a internal story of I'm not good enough, we can see that as a shadow. And that's going to create a lot of situations where I'm developing maybe anxiety or pain or really not nice symptoms, right? Shame or guilt even. And so when we remove the shadow, we get the light underneath, and that's the light work we're speaking about. But we also must notice that shadow has its own systems. Often one of the things that's hard to break in shadow work is when shadow creates its own internal system. For example, if we have a story of I'm not good enough, but we also have a feeling of I need to be perfect. And then let's say we also have a part conflict, or we have two parts kind of fighting one another, where one part wants to relax and chill, and one part wants to work really hard and build something. And you have all these three different types of shadow emerging. What actually can happen is they come together, right? And so even if you break one of the shadows, the other two pull the other one up. And so it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. You can run into that in your own shadow work, which is why it's often recommended to work with someone to help support you, because having that external perspective, especially if someone's very trained, it can really help you get through those complexities. But if we notice that emerges organically in shadow, right, unconsciously, it also does the same with light. But we can do that unconsciously, but we can also do it consciously, right? Not pushing or forcing, but simply, if you notice, let's say I had multiple lights emerge, right? And I'm going to use an example. I had one which was this really beautiful golden warmth, and it emerged around business, where I was just noticing, I can build my business from this real golden warmth. It doesn't have to be from this harsh anxiety, from this real like grind hustle. I kind of gave that back, and this golden warmth emerged, and it was just, it was so wonderful. I don't need to do it like they do it. I can do it in my way, and I can be successful in that, and I can feel safe as I do it. And it was just such a wonderful, wonderful experience. And then a new light emerged, right? Did some more shadow work, and this inclusion, right? Being included in the world, included by people around me. I'm not an outsider, I'm included, right? This is what emerged. And so these seem kind of very different, right? Got a very business-orientated golden warmth, and then we've got this inclusion that was all about relationship and being with people and connection. Yet, I just nurtured them both, celebrated them both. It's how we do light work. But held them both at the same time, not forcing them, right? But just being curious what happens when we interact. And guess what happened? The inclusion would meet the golden warmth. And they would play together, right? And new qualities would emerge from that play because they were developing a system together. They were working together now. And so one of the qualities that emerged was a leadership. And so now this system didn't just include inclusion and golden warmth, these two beautiful states and beautiful lights, but it actually included now this leadership. And so now, in many ways, there was 4 qualities emerging because the system in itself is a quality. The system in itself is distinct from the parts, right? It's bigger than just the sum of the parts. And so we now had the system, then we had the inclusion, the golden warmth, and the leadership. And what would happen is I would grow one, I would nurture one, and all of the others would grow as well, which just was so beautiful from even a more leveraged perspective, because every time I grew one of them, all the others would be nurtured as well. And so I was noticing such a dynamic transformation, almost like a snowball just moving downhill, where each change would just break through like 10 different triggers, right? 10 situations that previously might have created a sense of anxiety or suffering in some way were now just clean and pure and filled with golden warmth, inclusion, leadership, and the system of light as a whole. And it was just wonderful, and it wasn't forced in any way. It just emerged organically. And what's really beautiful is just in the same way the shadow system would make it more complicated to heal, the light system would make it much more difficult to break in any way. So any new challenges that emerged, they were met by the system, right? Not just the individual parts. And so more often than not, challenges wouldn't ever break the system, or if they did, the system would adapt to the challenges. And it just became so much more robust, right? So much more flexible, to the point where the system was adapting in real time, unconsciously, to new challenges. It was growing on its own. It was almost like a second brain that was alive in its own way and growing in its own way, in its own line. And so what would happen is I would just notice change after change after change by barely doing anything. And this is the power of Lightwork systems. We create such enormous leverage because when we nurture one, we nurture all of them. When we celebrate one, we celebrate all of them. And when we do that, we just create an infinite transformation. We get such surprises for things we never thought possible. And we get to live a life of bliss, peace, and harmony, just being the beginning, just being the start, with curiosity for what it can evolve into. And so I hope this was an inspiring beginning to talking about Lightwork systems. I welcome any curiosities you might have. I welcome any questions, clarifications you might need. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye for now.